This is a video about factorising quadratic expressions. What that means is going from something like this, x squared plus 8x plus 12, to something like this. How is it you get from this to this? Well, that's the process of factorising a quadratic. Before we start figuring that out, I want to look at some examples of multiplying out brackets. So, I've already done a video about this, but it doesn't matter if you haven't seen that. You can just multiply these out yourself, and I think you should find that you get something like that for that one. And maybe for this one, you get this. And I just want to look at how these numbers arise. And crucially, I'm going to look at what happens with the plus 2 and the plus 5 that are inside these brackets. When you multiply these out, the plus 2 and the plus 5, well look, if you take those two figures and add them, you get plus 7. If you take those two figures and times them, you get plus 10. Plus 2, plus 5, multiply them together, you get plus 10. Plus 2 and plus 5, add them together, you get plus 7. If I look at this one, similarly, if I take minus 2 and minus 6, and I add those two figures together, minus 2 plus minus 6 is minus 8. Minus 2 times minus 6 is plus 12. Bear that in mind. We'll do one more example. Just looking at what happens when we multiply out pairs of brackets. So what happens when we multiply out plus 5 and x minus 3? X plus 5 and x minus 3. I think the answer to this is this. It's x squared plus 2x minus 15. And again, if I look at this plus 5 and minus 3, if I add those two figures together, I get plus 2x. If I multiply those two figures together, plus 5 times minus 3 is minus 15. So when you multiply out pairs of brackets, where you've just got one x in each place here, you take these two numbers and you multiply them together to get this, and you add them together to get this. Why is that helpful for us? Well, it's helpful for this reason. Suppose I'm faced with factorising something that looks like this. So I want to take this and I want to put it into that kind of two bracket shape. I want to get it into that form. And this one, because I've got just one x squared here, I know I've got to have an x and an x here. Because otherwise, x times x is x squared. So I must have just x and x. The question is, what numbers am I going to put here? And what we've just seen has to follow for this example. So I know that that pair of numbers have to add up to plus 8. I also know that that pair of numbers have to multiply to plus 12. and it's in the multiplication that I'm going to start. I'm looking for a pair of numbers that multiply together to give 12. So I must multiply to 12. What could that be? Well, it could be 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. But they also have to add up to 8. And I think this pair, with positive signs in front of them, add up to 8. And so I think what I have to do is do it a different colour. I have to put plus 2 in here and plus 6 in here. And then I can check my answer by multiplying this out. If I multiply out x plus 2 and x plus 6, I get x squared plus 6x plus 2x plus 12, which does give me x squared plus 8x plus 12. So that's the process we're using. The process we're using is to find a pair of numbers that multiply together to give this, and that same pair of numbers that add to give this. So let's look at some other examples. We'll just do a few. Suppose I've got x squared plus 4x minus 21. So I'm looking for a pair of numbers that multiply to give minus 21 and add to give plus 4. And it's always the multiplying that's the place I'll start. Because to get into 21, I think I probably need 1 and 21, 3 and 7, and that's probably it. Am I going to get any of these pairs to add up to 4? Crucially here, this is minus 21. It's minus 21, so I could have minus 1 and 21, minus 3 and 7. I could also have, I suppose, 1 and minus 21, and 3 and minus 7, couldn't I? Of these, do any of them add up to 4? And I think the answer is this pair. Minus 3 plus 7 is 4. And so I think that tells me that my correct factorisation is x minus 3 and x plus 7. So if I've done this right, when I multiply this out, I get x squared minus 3x plus 7x, which is plus 4x, minus 21. That's how to factorise quadratic expressions.